Hey everybody, Keisha here, and today I am here with my friend
Jennifer Guskin,
and we need your help. We are right now working on advocacy for combating human trafficking, and here's why. So we'll give you a little bit of background of our story and why we're doing what we're doing.
I was adopted as an infant by a couple who sold me throughout my childhood. I have been to Epstein Island and on multiple Lolita Express types of flights as a child. After I went public, Child Protective Services opened a substance-exposed newborn case, even though all tests came back negative, and they told me that if I wouldn't stop posting on social media, I would never see my daughter again. I started to connect how I was adopted as an infant and then sold throughout my childhood, how many other children who have been through the adoption, foster, and CPS pipelines have also been trafficked to Epstein's Elk.
And as many of you guys know already, based on the work that we do at the CARES Project, I'm an American Indian born in Canada under the Jay Treaty. My father and I were exposed in the improper contagion mitigation for the COVID pandemic in early 2020. As a result of this, I lost everything: a house, cars, corporate assets, jobs. Bank accounts were shut down in Canada, and I fled to the US as an American Indian, fully documented, and was trafficked by rogue agents in ICE and other agents in the government, and forced to live with single American men. I was even imprisoned for 7 months initially, and then trafficked throughout the states. Put on full surveillance tracking and wasn't allowed to leave the city, house, or state without permission, or work without permission. And that happened for many years, and I was on and off the streets because of that, and in and out of shelters. And that is just a small example of what many go through in this trafficking system, be it the family courts or otherwise. So that's why the CARES Project will be going to DC to speak with representatives and do live reporting. We're also going to be in contact with other families who are dealing with human trafficking, and through the CPS courts or through any other means, lesser versions of trafficking, and doing reporting on them live and otherwise. We will also be working on, we ultimately want to shine light on what's going on with the trafficking here in the US. And we also want to meet with various agencies in DC, and we'll be going back and forth for training sessions and other things so that we can be better equipped to help people deal with resolving some of the issues that we're seeing. We will also be putting forth petitions in government to help people get justice, and that's something that we have been working on already so far. We have some petitions that have recently been filed in the state of Colorado, Michigan, Texas, and Arizona, and we will be continuing.
But we can't do this on our own. We will be traveling to events and training courses, as well as DC on a consistent basis. We also have to get acceptable equipment, such as computers, cameras, interview gear, etc. There will be other miscellaneous costs that would also be like gas, food, and rooms if necessary.
So that is why we are working towards combating human trafficking, and that is exactly why we need your help. We cannot do this alone, and most what the CARES Project does is on its own dime. And so we do love and appreciate each and every one of you that support us and all the work that we do. As many of you know, we also live stream on Lindell TV every day. And everything we do, like I said, is on our own dime. So we appreciate all the love and support and all the people who do donate. And we would very much love and appreciate that still. Thank you everybody for your time and considerations. And thank you for all the support. And we will catch you guys in the next one, and hopefully we might see you guys in the future and come across you and maybe be able to do some great things together.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the CARES Project podcast. Today we have with us Theo Fleury. He was a former NHL hockey player who played for a various number of teams. I remember him playing for the Flames because I grew up in Winnipeg. I liked him except when he was playing Winnipeg, but that's beside the point. But now he's become an advocate. He's a motivational speaker who's gone through a whole lot with a lot of addiction issues and sexual abuse issues, and then now is advocating for, people in this insane government that we're dealing with that are seem to be criminals, and obviously with Stephanie coming to host with us today. So, welcome, Theo, and do you want to just introduce yourself to our audience?
Yeah. So my name's Theo Fleury. I'm a former NHL hockey player. Played 15 years in the NHL, and after I retired, I wrote a book about my life where I exposed a lot of childhood trauma and sexual abuse, which then, put me on the speaker circuit. And so basically for the last 16 years, I've been talking about trauma, mental health, and addiction and how they're all connected, and helping, other survivors or people who've experienced trauma in their life or mental health issues or addiction issues, whatever it is that you struggle with. But, and then, obviously, seeing the similarities between pedophile abusers, how they get their victims to do what they want them to do, and then realizing that the government was using basically the same tactics of manipulation, coercion, lying, stealing, and cheating, right? So obviously this isn't my first spiritual war that I've been in. I was groomed from a very young age. And, like I said, I was over a 2.5 year period from about 14 to 16 and a half years old, I was raped by a coach over 150 times. And so I know what the grooming process looks like. And I saw early on in, this whole craziness that happened over the last 6 years, I saw that, government officials, prime ministers, presidents, you name it, all over the world were grooming people to get them to take the bioweapon, right? And, I just remember sort of reliving a bit of my abuse at the beginning of COVID, and and then I really started speaking out around that time, and basically I haven't stopped for the last 6 years, kind of exposing these evil, insane psychopaths and pedophiles who are actually running our countries and running the world, and so I've been speaking out about it and exposing these people for, the evil, satanic, crazy people that they are.
Yeah, I agree with you. When I look at the way our government is run, I see pedophiles and the grooming process. And in my situation, I was sexually abused by a girl when I was younger. And there's differences between the two on the way that they groom, but they get to the same outcome. The
Yeah.
women will try to make you feel more good while they're doing this, where the men just trap you in a predatory manner and just be done with it more so. But at the end of the day, they're doing the same tactics in order to destroy us. And it's very predatory. You see this across the board. And yes, I
Yeah.
agree. It's 100% satanic.
I want to say where I see it mostly for me personally was through the doctor's offices. 11 years old, I was forced to lay on a table while a doctor touched my genitals, and I felt extremely uncomfortable as a little girl being forced to have a male doctor do that to me. But also too in the church homes. Like I feel like when I was growing up, the adults told me it was polite to show affection to other adults, or that I had to snuggle with a stepdad, or things like that, where it's this grooming process that's happening psychologically, almost like a psychological warfare that's taking place, and people have no idea what they're complying to. They're just doing it for your safety or for science or to be polite or whatever it is, but it's actually harming us as children, as a society, and it's harming humanity.
Yeah. Well, it's Like if you think about it, like who are the biggest perpetrators of trauma on the planet? Government, right?
Yes.
You know, you know what I mean? And I've been studying human behavior for about 20 years, and what I realized is, we don't have a mental health crisis, we don't have a addiction crisis, but what we do have is an unresolved trauma crisis. Is the planet and the people that live on the planet have been traumatized over thousands and thousands of years. And, the direct result is, that trauma and abuse has sort of spit out all of these leaders who also, I would assume, right, hurt people hurt people. So I would assume, that the people that get themselves in power, are survivors of trauma themselves. But the one thing that they haven't done is they haven't gone on a healing journey. They're actually addicted to power, which is the worst addiction to have, right? And so, that's sort of their outlet or whatever it is. But you know,
Well,
and for me, I've been on a 20-year healing journey, where I've spent $1 million on therapy. I've done every kind of therapy known to mankind. I've done 10,000 hours of therapy because I wanted to get better, right? I wanted to step out of, the victimhood role, and get into, surviving and thriving and, having a great life. And so, I didn't spend 20 years healing myself to have a bunch of idiots snuff us out. And, because let's face it, they want us all dead, right?
yes.
So,
They want to poison us. They're poisoning us and our children through the medical system. It's Nazis. This is the Nazi control. We never won the war. Like we were in school. I'm in the U.S. We were in school that we won the war. No, we didn't. You're in control of us right now. You're controlling our curriculums in school. You've completely destroyed the family homes. You've destroyed humanity. You're poisoning us. You're making us sick. You're making us turn against each other. It is a whole system. These systems talked about in Revelation of the Bible. It's the whole system that's killing us.
Somebody mentioned me on social media. They're like, well, they're punishing your kids. Maybe you shouldn't let them punish your kids. I said, listen, these guys took my oldest daughter through Child and Family Services in Manitoba. No provocation. She got raped for years. And then I had to fight for 3.5 years to get her back. And I'm like, they came back and they're doing worse. I said, there's no way that any of my children will be safe or anybody else's children if I don't do something. Because I didn't force them to punish my kids. I did what was right. And nobody should back away from doing what's right because these people are terrorists. They're pedophiles. They're devil worshippers. Nothing else I can describe them because this is so sick.
Well, and they're cowards, right? They're cowards, right? And that's what I tell people all the time: don't be afraid of cowards, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not the biggest guy in the world, and I had a pretty awesome NHL career because I figured out early on that I was playing against a bunch of cowards, right? And when you push back against cowards, they go hide. They go back into the darkness and hide. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, and then, there's a certain, for me, my faith and belief in God is, the only reason why I'm alive today. And so, when I'm out in the world, I'm wearing the armor of God and I fear nothing because apparently there's a little story at the end of the Bible that says God wins. Okay.
Yes.
And so if that's the case, then I have nothing to be afraid of. And neither should you.
That's exactly it. Go ahead, Stephanie.
And that's together as a like there's this that's waking up. We're all looking at the way that we were traumatized as children. And we're all, because I'm on the same kind of journey as you. I have South plant medicine because I had trauma I had to heal from. And sitting with that plant medicine, really, I saw visions of things that like, it was very real. And I went and looked it up in the history books. And sure enough, there it is. Like what we've done as a nation, what we've done as a whole humanity world, the way we've harmed children since the beginning of time. I mean, this goes back thousands of years. And this has been happening. And this control mechanism that is, again, it's a generational cycle of manipulation, control, and trauma. And a lot of us are healing from that and realizing the power is within us. That we all need to come together and unite rather than be divisive about our political beliefs or our religious beliefs or whatever else, and say these things are wrong that are happening in religion, in the school system, in the medical institutions, in our presidency, and our elections, everything. It needs to stop, and it takes all of us, again, coming together and working together to bring awareness to this. I appreciate you coming on and sharing this and speaking up with some of your status.
I agree, because what people need to do, and one of the things that our government is doing, is blurring the differences between men and women. Men and women are both critical. The mothers do the most important role on planet Earth. The fathers, second most important role, but they're designed to work together and we're different. This whole idea of putting them the same, this is destroying our society. For all of human history, we work just fine having men and women being good at being men, being good at being men, and women being good at women, so that we can have decent children and have better generations. Now they want to tell you that men can be women and women can be men, and you're all in this madness. It can't work. It's insanity.
Yeah. Well, you've seen what's happening, of 10 years of Justin Trudeau here in Canada.
Jeez.
His whole agenda, has basically worked because we're a country in chaos. We're a country with no more rule of law. There's no accountability for anything or anybody. And, but we've seen this movie. We've seen this movie a lot of times, right? I don't know how many times communism has been tried on the planet. And, the only thing it spits out is mass death. That's the only thing that comes out of communism. That's it. Like nothing good. Like your life's not going to improve. You're not going to have more money in your bank account. At the end of the day, you are going to die, and you're going to die a very painful, miserable death if we continue to go down the road that we go down. And if we continue to vote for these type of people, then, it's on us then, right? It's on us then.
Yes.
I think go ahead.
No, I just wanted to sit down and say, because we got some American audience as well. In Canada, the government is structured like it was designed by pedophiles. There is so much secrecy within the government that they don't even have in the United States. If people in the United States actually lived under this, there would have been a war a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
Long time, because everything is just in secret and it just is on ambushing people. It is the most filthy thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. But it happens here, though, too, in America. That is happening here. And the problem I have is that when I was doing all the MAGA Nationwide stuff, I was super political at the Capitol, organizing rallies and all that. And I saw a lot of these pro-gun people. But what I'm noticing is a lot of these pro-gun people come to them that we actually don't have constitutional rights like you think we do. Or like you have your guns, but everyone's too afraid to use them against their government. And our government has lied. It's coming out now how much our government has lied, especially with the COVID stuff and how many people died of, remdesivir. The only approved drug by the hospitals was remdesivir, which the side effects on is respiratory failure. And then you put ventilators on. We don't need gas chambers. We have ventilators and we're drugging people up in the hospital. They're killing people. And again, like there's a lot of things that were hidden. I was listening to a lot of podcasts, a lot of doctors who were talking about the medications that were working and healing these symptoms that were like healing people right away. Ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and other things, and they were being silenced by our government. And now the truth about that's coming out, but you don't see the people with all these guns revolting and going to war against their government because they're too afraid. And it's like, well, so what do we do? How do we it up, and I think it's a good way that we're talking and bringing awareness to it. So more people are like, wait a second, there's a bunch of people talking about this. Maybe this person's not crazy. Because I was labeled as a crazy person to a lot of people during COVID. I was an anti-vaxxer before COVID came about, where I was already aware of the vaccines and how they're damaging us and our children. So I was definitely, stoned basically energetically by a lot of people during COVID, which was hurtful, but I'm happy I said the truth now. And more people are speaking
Yeah.
out.
Well, what the conspiracy theorists are 90 and 0, I think now.
Yeah, right. We read about everything.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's such an insane place to be, right? And the third step in the program of 12-step, okay, came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore us to sanity. So the only way back is when the collective decides that God is the CEO of this, and we all fall in line and we start to pray, we start to meditate, we start to listen to frequency and be around people who have really high vibrations. That's when this is all over. That's when this is all over. Yeah.
I agree. You're muted.
Of course, I like talking to myself sometimes. When God was talking to Samuel when they wanted a king, God said, "Don't do it. They're going to send your sons to war. They're going to take what you have. They're going to tax you to death. They're going to make your daughters servants, and you're going to regret it." And what did they do? They did it, and then they had to come back and say that was the worst thing that we ever did. Right?
Well, as a mom, I will say, like, I was working full time as a single mom, so I had to really go to work and work hard for everything. And then I finally was like, I'm making just enough money to make ends meet. What is the point of this? I might as well quit my job, have my hair clients on the side that I can just make a little cash, babysit for money, and homeschool my kid. Because I went to the schools here and I saw the abuse that took place by all of that, and I felt like. And then I was emotionally disconnected from my kid, where I wasn't the nurturing mom that I needed to be. So it really destroyed that divine feminine within me. And it's because I also grew up with a very masculine mother, where she was constantly yelling, slamming cabinet doors. She wasn't emotionally connected to us as kids because she was constantly working. She was stressed. She was also a single mom. And so I see this generational cycle of that coming down where, it's the women are servants right now, tricking us into going to jobs. That was the worst thing we could have done for the family household, is to send the moms to work and not have them homeschool their children. That's where the values lie, is kids are learning confidence by being homeschooled. They're learning about their body, proper nutrition. They're able to move about. They're not forced to sit in desks all day long, where then obesity is the biggest now, right? Like, there's nothing healthy or natural about sitting in a prison all day long, where you have these bells that go off and you're like a rat, where you go to the next class. The food they give you there is just like a prison. They bust you just like prisoners. I mean, these are concentration camps for our children. Well, and I saw it harm me and harm other kids.
Well, where did we get our school system from? We got it from the Prussians. What was the end result of the Prussian school system? Nazi Germany, right? Like, it was an indoctrination. What we're living in is slavery. Most people way back when, self-sufficiency was how you determined wealth. When you couldn't pay for yourself, if you squandered your living, you would sell your labor to someone else as an indentured servant, and that was slavery. And so the 9-to-5 job that we get, that we're taught that we need to get, we're actually slaves, and now we are dependent on someone else, and this is why we're in this position, right?
100%. And they've been stealing that money for 300 years, right?
Yeah.
Money's made of money and time is all made of construct. Like, somebody who created a time, like, all of our time is differently. I don't believe that humans only live to be 80 or 90. I believe that we can live much longer than that. Personally, for me, just learning about energy and our proper, like, nature, like being inhabiting nature rather than taking it over like we have. I've seen how well nature works, and even being connected to animals and things like that. Like, people live a lot longer when you use herbs, when you're out in nature, when you're meditating, when you're connecting back to self rather than something external and being religious to like a church or like to another being or to a government, even government's religion also. It's your belief system and what you believe, really, when it comes down to it.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big believer in, people talk about spirituality. Well, what is spirituality? Well, it's relationship, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the first relationship that has to be solid is the one I have with myself, right?
Yes, absolutely. I agree.
Because if I have a great relationship with myself, how do you think all of my other relationships are going to be? Well, they're going to be the same, right?
Yes.
And um, we're so disconnected from all of the good stuff, right? And it's because we're traumatized, right?
Yeah.
And when you're traumatized, you have no ability to think critically because you're only surviving. And so, the government will continue to traumatize its people because it doesn't want them to start to think critically. And once you start thinking critically, then you want to hold people to account because you're holding yourself to account every single day, right? So if I'm holding myself to account and I'm living under a certain rule of laws and I look out into the world and nobody else is doing that, crazy.
Yeah.
Insanity.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you look at who the government is, I feel like it's us too, because even for my mom, she works for the city. My dad worked for the military, and just seeing the things that they comply to and the way they talk about people and their mindsets, it's very negative and it's very gossipy, and they're always, pushing their own fear on people. When you look at the government, it's not just like these people who are in power. It's us who battle on each other and who weaponize the court against each other and divorce courts and all of that, like single parents fight. So it's not even like it's like some government entity that's above us. It's us who are doing this to each other. And we comply to this.
Yeah, just want to let's stop and hear something from the Pillow Man, and we'll pick this up after the commercial break.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sailed because right now, every order ships absolutely free.
Yeah, we're back. So anybody who needs any of the MyPillow products, it's at mypillow.com/Karis or call 800-845-2942 and use the promo code Karis. And there's other ways to support as well in the ticker. And so I just wanted to kind of circle back on like with our government, because we're going to kind of tackle this on this segment. With the way that we watched our government come in here and allow you to basically, they groomed us along the way. They made us feel good. The politicians will come in and say things that make you feel good, but then they will come back and, let's put it straight, they rape you. They rape you.
They're all friends together. They all need a document. They don't actually know what they're signing. They're just getting you excited about their views, and then they're just signing documents, and you're losing our rights.
And then you go to court, and the judges do the same thing, but even worse.
They play God.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
Without any investigation, people are turned into criminals. Like my partner being turned into a criminal, he's never been a domestic abuser. When you look at a court piece of paper, it shows that he's a domestic abuser and has all these violations of an order for protection that shouldn't be there because they've turned him into a criminal without any investigation. What they've done to him is inhumane. And that's what their courts are doing. They're playing God, and they're acting like they're, in control of everyone's lives, and it's really scary to see that happen.
Yes, and they've beaten us so badly that most people they it's like we have Stockholm syndrome across the world, because people look at the people that are standing up and they think that they're crazy, but it's like you're literally fighting for slavery.
Yeah.
Like you look for example what they did with the liberal government. You brought in an unelected person like in Mark Carney. He has not been in Canada for 11 years. He's got 3 passports, wants to say that we're the most European country outside of Europe. I'm like, no, we're not socialist and we're not communist. But he and they call him Mark Carnage because he destroyed England. And he can't even sit in Parliament because he's not elected.
Yeah. Well, he's been working on this Agenda 2030 for a really long time, and he's one of the ringleaders, right? And what drives me crazy is the simple fact that, especially in Canada, we have 338 people who sit in the people's house, okay? And I don't know how many people have died in Canada during COVID. I don't know how many people are injured from the vaccine, but not one, and I repeat, not one politician of the 338 have said boo about that. So they basically were accomplices to a genocide, okay? And now, guess what? It's election time. So now these people want us to vote them back in so that they can do the same thing over to us. And people are they're still gonna vote for a liberal. So you talk about Stockholm syndrome, that's it right there. Right?
Yes.
That's it right there.
It's like running to your rapist and say, please give me more. This is how insane it is. Right? Like Canada was on par with GDP with the United States when Trudeau took power. Our whole country now is poorer than the poorest state in the United States.
Yeah. Mississippi, I believe it is, right?
Yes. Alberta and Ontario are still poorer than Mississippi. Right? Crazy. And and you want
we're the 3rd largest resource-rich country in the world, and for the last 10 years, we're like, we don't want to make any extra money. Like, we don't want to provide quality of life for our citizens who live in Canada. Let's go along with this climate hoax and let's just start sending as much money as we can to as many corrupt dictatorships all over the world so that they can launder that back into our bank accounts and become rich.
Let's talk about that climate thing, right? Because I looked at the climate modeling in school. Like, I got a background in engineering, technologist, got a degree. That is taking a very minuscule portion of the Earth's surface, and you're trying to study it for a certain amount, and it's a very complex system. Then you're going to try and extrapolate that for the entire Earth's surface when you're not even using 1%. Yeah. That's impossible. Yeah. You're lying, right? Like, it's just not possible. And so it's a scam. It's 100% a scam.
The geoengineering too, and it's like, what are you? And then people used to say chemtrails are a conspiracy theory, but it's like, no, because there's the condensation trails, right? That disappears. The chemtrails are seeing the sky where there's lines going multiple ways. That is not a cloud. And it's like, what chemicals are you spraying? What heavy metals are you spraying into our bodies? And then you have this 5G. So you're breathing in these heavy metals, you're breathing in these chemicals. I mean, they're gassing us out somehow, just like they did the Nazis, but they've gotten smarter about it, you know? And then they have people fighting, saying you're crazy for saying that, but it's like, just look up. Like, just look up and look at the sky. Like, this is not normal stuff. You can go find government documentation talking about geoengineering. So how much money, how much of my tax dollars are you using to poison us? That's what we should be asking. What are you using our tax dollars for? You're using it to literally poison the people.
Well, they're using all tax dollars.
The world's money.
Well,
Excuse me. To eliminate us. They're using our own money to eliminate us.
Exactly.
And we're not supposed to be mad about it. We're not supposed to be upset about it. We're not supposed to expose them.
Talk about it. Don't talk about it, or your conspiracy theory. We're gonna put you in a mental hospital if you talk about it. That's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, like
This is why. Look at the amount of politicians that are getting money from Big Pharma, right?
yes.
Look how Trudeau got rich over the pandemic, right? Like, then you wonder why that nobody's going to be able to get remedy for the vaccines. Look at the States; they have a vaccine court. It's like a kangaroo court because they're all on the take, right?
Right.
For cancer, right? Here in America.
No, that's in the States. The vaccine court.
It's called VAERS. So they signed it. It's the 1986 Vaccine Injury Law Act. They signed in to take away liability from the vaccine manufacturers. So as long as they're honest on those vaccine inserts, which I have a whole box in my house. I have studied vaccine inserts for a long time. I have studied medical science. I saw my own health, my daughter's health, other people's health, about the damage that vaccines are causing. As long as they put the side effects in those vaccine inserts, they don't have to be held liable. You can't sue them because they put it out there for you. But the doctors are indoctrinated saying, I have a piece of paper, listen to me, I'm the doctor, you need this. These doctors are making money off it. My daughter's pediatrician used to be very pro-vaccine. He's got his own clinics here in Minnesota. New Kingdom, I love him. His name is Dr. Bob. He's been a huge advocate. He used to be very pro-vaccine and saw the difference between his vaccinated patients versus his unvaccinated patients. And now he's taken a stance for us, but he's had his license threatened. Other doctors have lost their license for speaking up about this. I mean, this is Nazi Germany right now. What we are experiencing, that doctors are losing their licenses for speaking up about the truth. It's insanity, you know?
It's actually worse. Even Owen Schroyer reported on this, and Trudeau had an NDA with a 15-year-old girl that he was doing some sexual misconduct. So when you begin to start looking at the people that are engaged in pedophilia in the government, it then makes you understand why this is happening. Because here in Alberta, Danielle Smith was protecting pedophiles, doctors that were convicted like pedophiles. They're raping kids. The college is protecting their license, and the Alberta Health Services are giving them access to children. They did a similar thing in Colorado, right? So how can you sit down and say that you want to vote for someone that is shielding pedophiles? Like, I don't get that. They're like, well,
people still think that voting actually matters.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not.
You know,
your votes don't matter.
Yeah.
No.
They announced yesterday that apparently we're going to have an election on April 28th. And the infighting going on with conservatives is absolutely insane. Insane. Like,
I saw
the conservatives in Canada are completely divided. And now they're saying, the Liberals have a really good chance of winning the election. Why? Well, because our side can't even get together and decide who they want to vote for and who they want to put in there.
Because
but does it matter? I feel like whoever's in there doesn't. I feel like because even for here in America, at this point, I don't trust any politician. I used to be a huge Trump supporter, and at this point, after the COVID stuff, because he wasn't speaking up about the vaccines and the damage they're causing, I couldn't trust him, which I know RFK Jr. is, and I appreciate him for that, and he's on Trump's cabinet or whatever. But after I saw the whole take place and what Trump actually complied with, which I know he didn't want to, he had to, but did you really have to? Could you have been honest about what's happening? Are you really a salesman for this? Are you playing both sides? I mean, look at all the people he was friends with. He was friends with the Clintons. He was friends with all these people, and we can't discredit that. We can't completely ignore that. No, I do believe.
Yeah, because he's never came out and said anything different. You know what I mean? Just like our guy here in Canada, Polyev. Like, he let all this happen for the last 10 years. You know, he'd put up a fuss every once in a while, but, you know, when people were dying and people were being injured and nobody was saying anything, that's when I knew right then and there that we have one party. We have one party in Canada, and that's it.
All over the world, it's one party. It's a new world. It's a new world order. It's a new world government. It's what it is. All of them. They're all part of this. It's bad.
But this is what I tell people about government. Government is like a toddler. We're the parents. We're letting the toddler run the house and do this. It's like this kid they see on social media. She's probably like around 10, and she's like stealing money and buying stuff on her parents' credit card and telling them, and the parents are like standing there like they can't do anything. I'm like, really? You need to take that kid and teach her a lesson. You got to give her some discipline, strip her of everything she has, make her go to work and figure things out. But this is what we have to do to the government, because they're getting no consequences. We're sitting there, we're complaining, but we're not doing anything. And we have to, they'll take the path of least resistance, and we need to offer more resistance than the people behind them, because if they don't see, like they say, that the pain of changing has to become less than the pain of staying the same. Right? And that's
they've done a really good job of keeping most of the people still comfortable. Like, not a lot of people have lost a lot yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so there's an assumption that everything's back to normal. And I'm going, hey, we're only at the beginning of this shit show. You know what I mean? They're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, okay, well, just sit back and watch and let it play out. And that's exactly what's happening.
The biggest question we have to ask is, are you able to live comfortably without a credit card, without a loan, without all these things? Oh, no, you can't? Then we are slaves. Like that, this system is not working for anybody, because we should not be having to go to a job every day or be forced to when we're sick or whatever else, because I have to make money to feed my kid. What I see as a future is that we should all be coming together as humans and you can have smaller communities where we are growing our own plots of land. We are feeding ourselves. Every house should have a garden in the front of it. You'd be able to feed the entire world if we all put gardens back in our yards, as opposed to these manicured green lawns with all these chemicals that you're spraying everywhere in your yard to keep the weeds out. Those weeds that you're killing, those dandelions, is heart medication. They're herbs for us to use and consume. And we completely destroy the planet with everything that we have been programmed to do in society. And it's insanity.
That's because they're being grooming, like you said, Theo, they've been grooming us, and they've been conditioning us to be this way. We're being love bombed, like an abuser love bombs you right before he abuses you. And now, because we've been so traumatized, we felt so good, and we're like, oh, well, this is going to be different this time. Really? Yeah. And then instead of one black eye, we're going to get two, right?
It's not.
This is exactly where we're at, because you're watching. Carney he went to Edmonton, and he said that, no, we're not going to put any caps on the energy or any of that stuff. Then he went to a different place the next day and said the exact opposite thing.
Yeah.
How do you trust somebody like that?
Yeah. Well, we all know he's a bad guy. Like, he's a bad guy. Really bad guy. Right?
Is this guy labeled as a conservative, or who is? I'm not familiar with Canadian.
Liberal.
He's the one. He's the guy that replaced Justin Trudeau.
Okay.
Yeah. And he's worse.
So, yeah, like he's way worse.
Joe Biden here didn't. I mean, what did he do? Dad is even live. I don't even know where Joe Biden's at this point, because weird.
Yeah. It's Well, it'll be an interesting month or so in Canada, anyways, watching these World Satanic Forum dudes run around and beg for your vote. So,
They're all talk.
Yes.
It's all
Yes. Speaking of that, somebody was circulating that Polyev's name is back on the World Economic
I
Forum.
heard that. Yeah, I saw that yesterday.
And
It's
just to get,
unbelievable.
it's like the system is rigged. I keep telling people we have to change the way the game is played. The people have to do something because this is unacceptable. Like, and I get to sit down and say it. Men, we need more. I see more women standing up than men, and this is the biggest problem because men are the protectors. How are we supposed to protect our families when you got your tail between your legs and you're bending over for the government that's about to violate you with a match and a little bit of gasoline, right?
I've noticed being a woman, and I will just say this as a woman, I've noticed a lot of men have a hard time listening to women because we've been taught through the churches that men are, and I know not every religious person believes this, but that men run the household and that women are just there to work and just take care of the family. But really, we are we're the visionaries, we're the psychics. We can read energy a little bit better sometimes, where we see things and our mind thinks differently. And when you try to speak up, I notice a lot of men will try to silence us, or me at least. Like, oh, that's crazy. That's not real. You know what you're talking about. It's like, how about you sit down and look at what I'm looking at and listen to what I'm saying, rather than just try to discredit me because I'm a woman. And I do see a lot of women because we're mothers, right? We're fighting for our kids. We're seeing the damage that vaccines are causing, which then brought us into a whole other element of looking at all the other things that we are feeding our children, the chemtrails, all of it. There's all these elements that we have been woken up on based off one topic that we woke up on. And we all are waking up. But again, it takes men and women coming together to say, okay, wait a second, enough is enough. Like, how do we get our families back? How do we get back to the men going out hunting, providing for their families the right way, and not by a job and, oh, my job is more important than my family, or sports are more important than my family, because a lot of men are distracted by sports. They have their man caves. They go to their jobs and think, oh, I make the money, so the woman just takes care of the house. No, the woman's working all day long to take care of the children. We need you to come home and give us a break so we can at least have some laughs, and then we can gather ourselves and then provide energetically as a nurturing mom and not completely overstimulated. But you're seeing all this dysregulated households, nervous systems, generational cycles, all these things continuing in homes where it's damaging your children. It's continuing on where it's brainwashed.
I'll say something because this is part of what they've been taught in society, that women need to do the things that men do. No, men and women we're necessary, but we're complementary and we're very different. Women need to sometimes just step back and let the man get the consequences, because this is what men do with other men. Sometimes you're like, if you don't want to listen, well, you're going to find out, and then the man will figure it out, because we're hard-headed as men. We do a lot of dumb things. You'll see more guys with their tongues stuck to frozen poles in the wintertime than you will girls, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to let the dude get his tongue stuck to the frozen pole so he can find out, and then he's like, okay, I got to smarten up, right?
Well, I've been saying for a long time, we need to bring back godly masculinity.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where
it's time.
Where you respect the women for what they do, because, and I blame feminism for a lot of this, they made being a mother such a looked down upon role. It's the most important job on planet Earth. There's and being the father is the second most important job. So those two, everything in your
America is the number one consumer of antidepressants on the planet. Well, there's a direct result of moms not being in the household.
That is very true. And it's the Adderall too, because I was on Adderall for a while, and that caused me to be very irritable at my kid because I thought I needed to go to work.
I'm lumping all of that into the same
pharmaceutical
category.
Yeah.
Everybody's,
on
For
pills.
general anxiety and general depression, you don't need to be medicated.
No,
You know
we
what I
don't.
mean? No, no. All you got to do is take your shoes and socks off and
Go outside.
walk in the grass, and you'll be fine.
Yep,
You
I
know?
agree.
Yes, the way that we live our lives is so abnormal. Like we were self-sufficient, we would trade with our neighbors, we'd have that accountability in our communities. Now we're living in these little boxes. You go from your little box into a big little smaller box in your cubicle at work, and then you
Yeah.
spend all of your days, like, think about it, during the like dark ages, the peasants that worked on the Lord's fields and they owned everything, they worked 5 hours a day, and then they were able to go home at least for an hour and a half with their families and then come back and finish their work. Well, we work 8 hours a day, right? And that's a minimum.
Right.
So who's really slaves?
These screens, what we're doing when we're all day long focused at our work and the drama that comes from it, because I've worked in an office before, so I know what kind of drama comes there. I know what kind of gossipy, petty high school behavior happens by these grown women in these things, and you bring that home because that's your day all day long. You were treated horribly at work or whatever else, and then you come home and you take it out on your family without even realizing you're doing it. Again, it goes back to psychological warfare.
Yeah, 100%. It's all, well, I call it systemic government abuse, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
Systemic, right? And yeah, but will we wake up? I don't know. I don't know.
I think everyone is starting to, especially because we're having these conversations and because of like the activism I did, I see other people starting to wake up too. So I have hope that people are starting to see things that, wait a second, maybe we were doing things wrong. I know I did. I was extremely conservative and very Christian. And I realized that some of my behavior was not okay towards my daughter, towards people out in public, and it made me really look at myself and change the way I'm living. So if I can do it, if you can do it, and if you can do it, we've had conversations about your past life, and how you used to live. And I feel like a lot of us are realizing, okay, we've been controlled by something where this isn't making me feel right. Like our feelings, our emotional bodies have been cut off. We have the mind, the body, and the spirit. And our emotional bodies are so important. Our feelings are important. As kids, we're always told stop crying. You're supposed to have emotion, and that's abusive to a child. That's psychologically damaging. Where you're saying your feelings don't matter. My partner right now, I can tell he struggles with that. He never wants to talk about his feelings. It's like you have to talk about your feelings and your emotions because this is important. Like these are things that you should be talking about, and they do matter. I know you were told they don't because you're a man or whatever else, but men's feelings absolutely do matter, and women would love to hear more from men about their emotions and their feelings and the way that things make them feel. Men need to start picking up and sharing their feelings and emotions.
We're up on time on this segment, but this is something that I want to talk about on the next segment because we want to talk on the local level on how this abuse is affecting what we're doing, because the abuse on the local level was absolutely necessary for them to be able to do what they're doing in government. And we're going to talk a bit about Theo's background and how this abuse goes on in the second segment. So if you're watching on Lindell TV, you'll see this the next day. And so, Theo, you want to just tell people where they can find you and how they can help? You can help you. Sorry, that's it.
Yeah. My website is theofleury.life, and I'm on Instagram and X at theofleury14. So that's how you can find me, or if you're looking for a speaker for one of your events or whatever, go to my website, send us an email, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
All right, I'll close this segment with a prayer, and then we'll be back on the following one with talking about this abuse issue on a local level. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your love, grace, and mercy. We thank you for the hope that you have given us this day. And Lord, bring the men together with the women to rebuild their families, their churches, their community, and their nation. And most of all, that we can protect the children from this abusive government, that we can have some freedom and have some sensibility and common sense return to the land is my prayer. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right, we'll see you again on the next one.
All right.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sailed because right now, every order ships absolutely free.
Hey everybody, Keisha here. So today I want to talk to you a little bit real quick about Tina Peters' case. So on April 9th, 2024, myself, Maureen Steele, and Ann Vandersteel all went into the state of Colorado to file a petition for redress of grievances. Tina Peters actually also signed this petition. In fact, she actually had exculpatory evidence related to the election fraud that was outlined in the petition that was not allowed to go into the court. The petition was not brought to the floor, and as a result, Tina Peters was unlawfully imprisoned. My father, Dale Richardson, was actually tortured in the state of Colorado to suppress his evidence of treason against the United States, which was based on improper engineering controls which allowed for the spread of the COVID-19 virus, which was likewise created at Wuhan by Peter Daszak and the EcoHealth Alliance with the pathogen, which were handed over to the Chinese by the Winnipeg Biolabs. This created the circumstances for widespread election fraud. My father Dale and I are friends of Tina Peters, who has been politically persecuted for standing up for the liberty of all Americans. And she, as a sister in Christ, has been persecuted like I have for standing up for the liberty of all people. In the state of Colorado, women and Christians are being persecuted on monumental levels, and I'm calling for everyone to stand up for Tina Peters in every way possible, including using the CARES Project Action Plan to compel the state government to put the petition for redress of grievance to the floor so that Tina Peters can petition before the State House that belongs to the people. And if Colorado continues to deny a Republican form of government, we will implore that Congress and President Donald J. Trump initiate Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution, which guarantees a Republican form of government, to the states, and use that just power to intervene and provide what the Constitution has ordained. The time is upon us to come together and stand united as people, and let the world know that we stand together to preserve this perfect union for all Americans and our posterity. That is why, y'all already know, I'm going to leave you with my favorite quote. The greatest want of the world is the want of men. Men who cannot be bought or sold. Men who in their inmost souls are true and honest. Men who do not fear to call sin by its right name. Men whose conscience is as true to duty as needle to the pole. Men who will stand for the right, though the heavens may fall. Ciao, guys.
All right, we're back for the second part with Theo Fleury and obviously Stephanie again, to talk a little bit more on how this abuse in our government was accomplished by abuse on a local level. And Theo, you want to kind of tell us a little bit about your story? Because I know that it was something that made headlines in Canada, I know in the States as well. And this is a huge brought a lot of light to a huge problem, especially for men who are very silent when it comes to this kind of abuse.
Yeah. Well, as I said in the earlier segment, I was I was groomed by a coach and a scout, and it was basically 2.5 years of complete hell that I lived through, and I was being raped probably 2 or 3 times a week by this guy, and then once I was able to get out of his grasp, I quickly discovered alcohol and food and sex and gambling and, you name it, as a coping mechanism to suppress, the emotional pain and scars that were left behind from that experience. And so, but I was able to, September 18th of 2005 was the last time I ever took a drink or a drug. And, I surrendered and turned my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand him. And, 19 years later, I have probably one of the most incredible lives you can possibly imagine. And I have great relationships. I have a beautiful wife. I have great kids. I have lots of really great friends. And I get to travel all over North America, helping people through their own trauma stories and their mental health stories and their addiction stories and whatnot. So I'm actually in Prince George today because tomorrow I'm doing a full day trauma workshop on one of the Indigenous communities up here in northern BC, and so really looking forward to that. But yeah, it's it's hard to believe that one of the most lucrative businesses on the planet is child and human trafficking, right?
Yes.
And one kid can generate between $100,000 and $200,000 per, for their trafficker. So, if a trafficker had 10, 12 kids, he's making anywhere between $1 and $2 million a year, and, the simple fact that people don't realize that a 10-year-old girl in Alberta tonight will be trafficked 10 different times. She'll have 10 different experiences today.
Yes.
And that happens 24/7, around the clock. You know what I mean? And the simple fact that people want to bury their heads in the sand and they don't want to talk about this stuff until it actually affects them, that's the kind of world we live in. You know what I mean? Like, there's very little compassion left. There's very little empathy left. People won't listen to other people's stories anymore, and so you're like on an island, and there's no way off the island, and there's certainly nobody that really cares that you're actually living on an island. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's kind of where we're at as a society.
Yeah.
So when it kind of question, when you were being abused, was there other people your age that were also that you knew of, that you guys ever talk about your guys' abuse with each other at all? Was it secret? You guys just kept it a secret and that's what happened?
But you got to remember that this guy who was my coach held my greatest dream in his hands.
Yeah, that's right? What they do.
And in, what was it, 1984, I guess, 82, 83, I think. Like, if I would have told somebody, first of all, I wouldn't be believed. Yeah. And then second of all, that would be the end of my career. It'd be the end of my hockey career. Because I'd be labeled as a troublemaker, shit disturber, liar. You know what I mean? And so I had no choice other than to keep it to myself because I wanted to get to my dream.
Well, and a lot of the guys, like, for example, even in sports, a lot of them want to help their families and their loved ones and so forth. And they're like, if I do anything, I can't help my family. And this is where they do this to men because they know that they will shut up because the men want to help the people around them that are depending on them for this happening. And these people they're sick. They're twisted. Yeah. They're sick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they really are, and there's no other explanation,
Well, here's the deal too. It happened.
What?
Yeah.
it's happening more than just sports. I mean, it's happening in churches too, where you have priests, you have nuns also touching.
It's everywhere. Everywhere, every facet of our life it's happening. You know what I mean? And and just nobody talks about it. You know what I mean? Like it's like this secret, right? Like people are aware that it's happening, but to jump on the bandwagon and become an outspoken advocate for any kind of abuse of children, like I work in the prison system in Canada, so I work with inmates, all kinds of different crimes. And you know what the pedophiles tell me? They say, don't let me out of here. And I go, why is that? They go, because this is the only place I feel safe. And I go, why is that? They go, because even though I know that I'm hurting somebody, my urge is greater than my own common sense. So I can't stop myself. And I know what I'm doing is wrong, but I can't control myself and I can't stop myself. So that's the reason why this 4x6 cell is the only place I feel safe.
You know what? Good for them for saying that, for taking accountability like that. You know what I mean? If they know they have that urge, that makes me have compassion for these people, because everyone always thinks, oh, just kill them off. They're not worth anything. But again, hurt people, like you said. So what happened to them is that make them have this urge. I think it goes back. I've said this in a different segment, but circumcise them. When you circumcise your boys, what is that doing to your nervous system? What kind of energy is that creating in your body? Is that creating people to want to abuse their kids, people to abuse as a kid? Or where is this? We need to figure out where this is stuff, why people have these urges and why they have these thoughts.
I just want to sit down and say, when I looked at pedophiles and I look at their behavior and so forth, it is very similar to addiction in the way that they are. And this is the point. And then they get to the point where you get to the point of no return, because I mean, at some points you have the people that act that they seem like they don't have a conscience anymore and that they're at peace with it. And if you get to that point, that's where I'm sitting down and saying that they don't it being wrong, it's not an issue. Like it's like they're fine. It's like drug addicts. There's the addict that once they get to a certain point, they just give up and they just say, this is all I'll be, and they'll just enjoy it. And then there's the people that get out and want to get out and do anything to get out, right? But you don't know who you're dealing with until they have that opportunity to get out. But at least if somebody still has a conscience and says, don't let me out, then at least keep them away, and they know that. Maybe they should listen to those guys so that they don't put them in positions where they're going to go and can't control themselves. Yeah. Right? Like, but I think almost that the government wants them out.
Well, of course they do, because 98% of pedophiles who get out of prison reoffend.
Right?
And drug dealers are there forever. People who sell drugs, who, again, you make a choice to buy drugs. I think it's crazy that drug dealers, people who sold weed, go to jail and prison a lot longer than people who are pedophiles. I mean, these people are actually harming children. But yet you're putting people who take money away from the government because, right, you can't track drugs, you can't track the money that's coming for drug dealers. They care more about the money than they do about actual humans and locking up the people who are actually harming other people physically. And it's children that they're harming.
Well, did you ever think that they might be getting kickbacks from child and human trafficking, from drugs?
Of course they do.
Yeah.
They keep the police keep it, and they probably disperse them themselves. And these law enforcement officers are very corrupt and are in Rosemont. They cover up the crimes. They have for a long time.
Well, isn't it funny how they groomed us to trust political people,
law enforcement,
fire,
to blindly trust them?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Doctors too, right? Doctors.
Yes,
like the whole thing. Like we were groomed to not question anything.
And
Yeah.
that's the problem, because you should question everything and understand why you're doing something, because if you don't understand why you're doing it, you should probably not do it. Figure out why you're doing it and decide whether or not this is good for you, right? That's
Yeah. Well,
the
they
proper
don't
way.
they don't teach us in school how to discern truth,
No,
No.
they
right?
don't.
No.
This
Yeah.
is what you have to learn about the same pace. If you're not the same page, you're in a special class, they segregate kids. And the problem I see too is they're segregating children and adults. So how are children ever supposed to grow up and learn how to be an adult if all they're around is one adult all day long that's telling them exactly what to think? They're not learning how to take care of a home. They're not learning how to take care of themselves. They're not learning anything besides the information that's being fed through them, you know?
Yeah, this is one of the other reasons why pedophilia is so rampant. Like in the Bible, they said that raping a woman is like rising up and slaying your neighbor. It's like murdering somebody, but they're still alive. That's like in a lot of times it's more merciful to kill them because you can only kill them once, but you can continue to rape them. This is rape and pillage that's breaking the back of the population. And so if you keep them in that situation, you're going to be able to control them, and you're never going to allow them to get where they need to go. And if you look at our society is now trending towards pedophilia. Pedophilia is rampant everywhere I look, and people want to just do this.
Yeah.
And we can't do this anymore.
Well, to me, rape is like a living murder, right? It's like a
Yes.
living murder. It
Psychological
takes a
abuse.
piece out of you that no matter how much therapy, no matter how much self-reflection, spiritual practices, you never get that back. You know what I mean? And rape has always been used in war,
Mhm.
Yes.
right? It's been a tool. It's been a tool, thousands of years. It was a tool that they
Take
used.
control.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And rape happens, and I'm noticing that rape happens in school. You're just being forced to control. It's not even just a sexual thing at this point. It's like people are being forced to do things they don't want to do, where it's like your energy is almost being raped in a way, and it goes. That's
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and they were even calling, the COVID shots needle rape.
Yes.
Yeah. Medical rape is a real thing right now. When I was in the hospital, I had my daughter 2 months early, and I went in there for I thought my water broke, and they forced me to stay in the hospital. They said my blood pressure was high, and I was like, I'll get better rest going home than being here. And every 4 hours you come and check my vitals. I'm not going to get good sleep here, so can I please just go home? They would not let me leave, and I was scared that if I fought them, they were going to call like CPS or something on me. So as a mom, I was like, okay, I'll stay. I did not get good sleep. I had to go back to I went home and slept the whole next day. They told me my blood pressure's high. I need to go back. So I checked it late at night because I slept all day long. And then I got yelled at by the OB saying, why are you checking it this late at night? I'm like, if you look at my record, I was at the hospital night. I didn't get any sleep. And so then I had to go back, and they ended up monitoring her and ended up taking her out via C-section 2 months early. I don't believe that would have had to happen if they did not do what they did. And I feel like these hospital births are disconnecting moms from babies. I felt that with my daughter. Where then when you cut the umbilical cord too early, that's not good because they're not getting all that stem cells from the cord love. And then they're giving the vitamin K shot. They talk you into that, the Hep B right away. She's putting them separated from her mom, where then my milk doesn't come in the way it's supposed to because of what they did energetically to me and my child. So it's like this damage they're doing to moms in the hospital by cutting babies out of moms. And it's harming to energetically to mothers. And again, it's harming our body chemistry and the natural process of being a mom and how we're supposed to feed our babies and take care of them.
Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed that they see here, this is what I don't understand why. Well, I do understand why it's done, but it shouldn't be done. When you have people that are rapists and pedophiles, they're doing it for power. When you look at this in the feminist mentality, they look at women's sex as empowerment. That is not something that should be there. Sex should be expression of love or whatever the case. It should never be a power dynamic, because if you condition someone to have sex for power, that is the wrong mentality. And it should be like, listen, you guys figure out what you do, but you shouldn't be trying to have a power struggle in sex. That is going to breed bad results, and that needs to change. That needs to get stricken from, because we don't want people wiring anybody to have that.
Yeah. Well, and we had an opportunity to wipe out the narcissistic gene off the planet too, and we didn't do that. And look where we're at now. It's crazy.
I mean, well, you got to fix this. We can't allow. We have to step off the crazy train. We have to go back to building this, because you look at, for example, right? There's even, I've talked to some former porn stars that left because companies like Pornhub, which is Canadian, they just started to put a push to sexualizing children, and they were like, I'm out. I can't do this anymore because they're doing things that are disgusting for children. And then people will get back and punish them for doing this, regardless of whether you agree with their life or not. Any person should understand harming children is wrong.
Yeah. Well, that's feeding the whole pedophile population, right?
Yeah.
And who are the biggest consumers? Who are the biggest consumers of child trafficking? Pedophiles. They're the biggest consumers. You know what I mean? So, and that perpetual cycle never ends. You know what I mean? And we have, like I said, there's no more rule of law. Like, you can do, if you have power, you can basically do whatever you want, and you're never going to have to face any consequences. That's why in the United States, like, the whole entire left are losing their mind, because they're exposing corruption and stealing of money from the American taxpayers. That's never been done in the history of the United States. That stuff has never been exposed. And now you have the left, who are like doing everything within their power to try to squash this information from getting out. We've got corrupt judges down there who are ruling against this stuff. Like, it's just like, it's so blatantly obvious of what is going on. But we have, I would say, 70% of the population who is dead, completely asleep and oblivious to anything that's going on. Why?
It's
Because
just media.
they're traumatized, and they're damaged, and the government keeps them poor so that they don't have any time to self-reflect. All they're thinking about is, how do I get my next meal? How do I put gas in my car? How do I get my next drug? How do I get my next drink? Right? And so there is no time for self-reflection. There's no time to hold anybody to any account, right? And this has all been planned. Like, this has all been planned.
Yes.
This is the psychological and spiritual war that we're experiencing, in real time every day.
Yes, we're literally in fight or flight mode all of the time. And this is why they're doing this. And this is a sick satanic plot. Like, I mean, there's nothing else that you can call it this way. So now we see that this is an issue, and we have to have people both working on a federal level, but we also need to work on a local level, because if you have a free society, the power comes from the ground up. We've been indoctrinated to believe that it comes from the top down. It's not. If it was that case, they wouldn't have spent so much time trying to silence us and to bury us. So what do you look at? What do you like? Let's talk about what you're doing to help work to fight this type of situation on a local level.
Yeah, I'm just trying to educate the planet. This is actually a reality, and this is happening. And because I've had the experience, most people, will listen to me, and they won't say I'm crazy or a conspiracy theorist or whatever. You know what I mean? But ultimately, it's educating parents and it's educating kids that you may think that your kids are safe, but in this climate and where we're at in in the world here, no child is safe anymore.
Unless they're home
No,
with you. And even then, parents are having their kids taken away for not agreeing with certain medical procedures or whatever else. So it's like even then, like our kids aren't even safe. I'm seeing story for story of moms and dads having their kids taken away because they saw the adverse reactions from the medications they're on. They found herbs or natural remedies that work. It's called quackery, and they're actually healing their children, and they don't want us. They want us sick and unhealthy so they can control us.
Yeah.
And a lot of the system trafficking your children away from parents who actually care about their health.
Yeah.
It's sad.
Yeah, because it's spiritually, it's physically, it's emotionally, it's psychologically. We're being abused at everywhere we go. It's
Every level,
abuse.
every aspect of life. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the sad thing is, we do it to each other. You know what I mean? Like I've had family because I chose not to vaccinate my child. I had family come after me so hard. I chose to homeschool. I had family come after me so hard. It was like, just let me parent the way I want to parent, and please just leave me alone. I've had CPS threaten on me. I've had all these things by my own family. It's like you guys have become the Nazis. You're not even willing to listen and think. You're only projecting your own fears of what you think society should be. Which I had the same as a mom because of what I grew up in. I had the same thing they had, but I overcame those and saw, okay, wait a second.
It's a proven fact that kids who are homeschooled are way smarter than kids who go to school.
Absolutely.
Right?
I agree.
It's an actual proven fact now, right? Because you're teaching your kids how to critically think. And so if they were to go back into the school system, they'd be like, what is going on here? Why am I learning this? Right? And you're not allowed, you're not allowed to question these evil
teachers,
insane people. You're not allowed to, That's why you get harassed. That's why you get harassed, Dale. That's why I get harassed. But you know what? I've spent my whole life as a villain because every visiting arena I went into, everybody hated me. They wanted to kill me, all that stuff. So I was like, I've already been there.
You've been crucified.
Yeah.
You've been crucified. You are above. That's how I feel. I've been crucified, and you know what? I will stand up for the kids all day long. I don't even care who says what about me. Threaten whatever you want. I know I'm a good mom. Do what you need to do. But look at my child compared to her kids in the public school system. She's extremely smart. She asks a lot of questions. We talk about our feelings daily about the way that she asks me, Mom, do you feel that way? And that's really cool to see a 7-year-old be able to talk about her feelings in the way that things make people make me feel. It's been very eye-opening as a mom, like psychologically, even for me. And then very healing as well to go back to my childhood and say, wow, my mom did not have these conversations with me, and she would not answer my questions because she assumed I was too young, or I wasn't aware, or kids just shut up and be quiet and keep your kids small, and let's segregate the kids and adults. And that's how I was treated as a child. So I'm like, no, we need the Bible says, listen to the children. The children come here who bring us information because they are connected to the multiverse or whatever you want to call whatever is outside of this physical reality. I do believe that kids are very attuned to the spiritual world and do receive information to give to us, but we've been completely shut off from that by society.
It's like kind of like what you were saying. We need to go back to like biblical families, simple families where you had the mother and the father, and they were both doing what they needed to do because the mother takes care of the kids inside of the home. The father makes sure that surrounding is safe and everything else, and they work together to make sure those kids are protected. Because when we put our kids in the care of these strangers, we don't know what they're teaching them. We don't know what you're doing. You're seeing how many teachers, they're now molesting the kids and everything else like this, and then they're teaching this SOGI or social emotional learning impairment, wherever you're at, that are teaching your children to go to the predators instead of the protective parents. And then they're butchering your children. Your children are like, I mean, and if you don't like it, like I know there's one girl, she's out in BC. They took her kids when she was complaining about this. She's reading Bible scripture to her kids. So they took her kid, sent her away, adopted her out, and now she's getting sexually abused, and they want to try to transition her, right? And we need to stop this crazy train and protect our families. Like forget about like working your 9 to 5. Like get a piece of land, figure it out, take less money, do what you need to do, because you can't pay back that stain on your child's soul if they get molested. You can't. Like, I mean, you might get through it, but you're still going to have that scarring for the rest of your life, right?
Well, it's also the other kids. No, you don't know other kids teaching your kids. That's where I was interrupted. It was other kids teaching me things that like I would have never seen had it not been for them. So it's not even adults in schools; it's these other kids that are also being traumatized at home, and they're going to these schools and they're traumatizing kids. So again, it's happening all over. It goes back to what's happening all over, and we're all doing it to each other.
Well,
Right. Well, and kids are traumatizing kids in school because we've got, a bullying epidemic going on. You know what I mean? So they're getting hit with so much trauma from every angle, every space. It's like, what an insane world it is, and what a time to be alive.
Well, exactly. Like with the internet, for example, like we give the kids these phones now, and you have unfettered access to the internet.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
Your kids are seeing like people getting killed. They're seeing all kinds of things that children were not designed to. And like, for example, like I was listening to a woman talking, and she said now that the girls, they're not having sex as much anymore because when having sex, the boys are strangling them and seeing all this stuff. And she said, explain to them that your son, that boy has been watching porn probably since he was 9. And then you throw into all the people that are getting killed and everything else like this. They're traumatized. Like, they need to take the phones out of the kids' hands.
Here's because I am a mom who my son has an iPad, and I will say she watches a lot of art on there, which helps her create mind flow. These phones and the internet can be a double-edged sword because I have learned a lot about a lot of things from the internet. So you have to just teach your kids the right information to be curious about. When you have parents who are watching TV shows or movies on Netflix now, they have all these sex scenes. I'm curious. I know I want to pause the TV during sex scenes or fast forward and be curious. I make sure not to watch things like that with my daughter. The questions she has aren't questions like that. She more wants to know, how do we paint this? How do I look this up? Like, and she asks really insightful questions where she can ask the phone that, and the phone can give her answers. So I will say there's a double-edged sword when it comes to phones. My daughter's creating her own memories. She's creating her own platforms, and she's 7. She's very smart, very aware. And I feel like she's using it to create confidence rather than being, I'm going to go research naked people. She has to be curious about naked people. And like I told you before, I have showed her very scientific picture, because she doesn't have a dad. She doesn't have a man that she's seen naked, and she knows that men and women have different body parts. And so she's been very curious. And so again, like I said before, I had to show her a very scientific photo of a man rather than going searching for it. I chose a photo with a very medical grade, photo, and it wasn't exposing her something sexual, because that's what she's gonna find if she goes and searches for herself. So as parents, we have to be honest with our kids, and they do have questions that are uncomfortable, because they do. I've noticed they are very curious. They have questions. We have to be honest so they don't go searching out there for information.
Let me clarify. When I say take the phones of the kids' hands, I mean that you're not going to give them with unfettered access. You're putting boundaries and controls on what the child is doing and teaching them good decision-making processes. This is not what's happening most of the time. Most of the time, it's here's the phone, go ahead, be busy, get out of my hair. That's where danger lies. Right?
You connect with your kids. I do. My child is very honest with me when she looks at something. Maybe you shouldn't look that up. Again, how they make you feel. Like when she has seen anything, they can talk about it. And she does. She'll be honest with you about stuff. So I appreciate that. If you have those conversations with your kids, they'll be honest with you and tell you things, and you can go ahead and fix it as the parent, and see what you need to say to them to help them through it.
I want to ask you something here, because you said you're out in Prince George, speaking in a native reserve. You want to kind of talk about the trafficking issue in the native community, because it is by far the worst in Canada, based especially with a lot of what the government is doing.
Right. Well, there's a lot of problems on reserves, and there's a lot of kids that who have parents who are addicted to whatever, right? So Child and Family Services comes in, takes the kids out of the home, puts them in, takes them out of their community, puts them in, a bigger center in the foster care system. And we know what happens in the foster care system is kids, not saying every foster parent is, but a lot of these kids, get neglected, abandoned, emotionally, physically, spiritually, sexually abused in these places, right? And then, the kids become withdrawn, and then as soon as they're old enough to get their hands on their own coping mechanisms, kids start smoking dope at 8, 9, 10 years old, because if they don't have that, who knows, right? So yeah, but it's the whole entire planet that is really messed up. God has been taken out of our consciousness on purpose, and it's been taken out of the schools and replaced with Soji and DEI and all this crazy stuff. And these kids aren't mature enough. Their brain, let's face it, our brains aren't developed until we're, in our mid 20s, and even some of us are late 20s. And so
that's true. I know.
Yeah, right. And so here we are. Yeah. And here we are, giving these kids these subjects and topics that they have no idea. They don't know how to sort that out in their heads, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, with the communism, I grew up in Winnipeg, so Winnipeg was the worst in Canada for a very long time, and they were putting kids. The Child and Family Services were putting kids in hotels, and they would get sex trafficked. It was a front page news. They continued to do it again, and a lot of them were native. And then they had a child prostitution right behind the largest office for Child and Family Services in Winnipeg. And so what you found that they did was they ran the reserves it's like communism, because none of the actual natives own any land, and the band is the one that controls it. And so they just go there and they this is a test to show you that it didn't work. But they went and they perfected it because, like in Manitoba, there's a lot of reserves that you can only fly in and out. You never see them. And then I started talk to one kid that was in a reserve called Shamattawa, and they had like 50 kids in a reserve of 5,000 people get killed and commit suicide. And I was like, what? And so then what they did there, they perfected it and then started to move it to everybody else. And this is what we're seeing. And it didn't work there. Communism has never worked. It never will.
Ever.
It's wrong. And this is what we're seeing. That's the fruit of communism. Don't want it.
Yeah.
We don't need it. Right?
No. Nothing humane comes out of communism. Like nothing. Just a really bad ideology that has never worked, right?
Yes, and Stephanie, you talked about we were talking before this about with your partner and his situation. So you want to touch a little bit on that because kind of a little bit similar to.
Yeah, so he actually, like Theo, he played professional hockey. He was molested by his father, who was the former assistant principal of the high school he attended. And it sounds like him and his brother had gotten in a lot of trouble in high school, and his dad has to get him off a lot of crimes growing up. And so now his dad has completely abused his power, has having an affair with his ex-wife, has taken his kids away, all for speaking up because Andrew started speaking about the abuse he saw in his home, about the abuse that other students have also experienced by his father. And now they are trying to silence me as well. They filed harassment restraining orders on me, him and his ex-wife and his father filed them on me, where we had a corrupt judge, Tim Wormager, but was not the original judge of my order, come in and approved his gross statement on me, saying I can't say anything about the petitioner anywhere on any social media site, which is a major violation of my constitutional rights. I didn't say he committed perjury. They both commit perjury on their statements. They've lied to law enforcement. They've made the town believe that Andrew is crazy, mentally unstable. They worked together. They conspired against him to file a civil commitment on him, had him put in a mental hospital for 2 weeks. The hospital had to let him go because he's not mentally unstable. They tried to put him back in there again for speaking up on that. So what he's been through is extremely traumatizing, and now he's forced to pay child support, $1,500 a month to kids that he can see. We've tried to go to law enforcement. I've gone to other law enforcement surrounding. He's gone to the BCA. He's gone to the FBI. We have gone to politics. We've gone everywhere, and not one person will even sit down and talk to us or even listen or anything. It's just whatever his dad says he seems to have. I mean, he's like Hitler. He's like the Hitler of Rosemount, or in Dakota County, where I live. And now I know, because I started speaking about this, I've had multiple dads reach out to me, letting me know that their kids' moms are also committing perjury to have these orders of protection approved. So a lot of moms in our area, out of pettiness, not just moms, dads too, are weaponizing the court and having just lying and committing perjury. And there's like the judges are either intellectually lazy, corrupt. I don't know exactly what it is, but there's a lot of these cases happening in Dakota County. It makes me not trust law enforcement anymore or our judicial system. They weaponized his hockey career against him, saying he received lots of blows to the head. So the things that they're using against people, it's illegal. It's super illegal. It's a violation of a lot of human rights placed here in Dakota County.
And so what you're seeing here on a local level is the same thing that you're seeing on a federal level. This is why people shouldn't be surprised that our government the way it is, because they're doing this locally, and if we don't deal with it locally, we can never deal with it nationally. And that's really where we're at, is that parents need to come together, the ones that are awake, because the ones that are sleeping, I mean, that's between them and God, right? Literally, you see people, they're watching things in front of their face and they just stick their heads in the sand. That's going to take God to wake them up. The people that are awake now, they need to get up and do something, because it's like the Revolutionary War. They didn't start with the 3%. That's what they ended with. And they still won, right? Because God's with the people. God doesn't side with pedophiles. Sorry. Right? Yeah. So we need to just everybody needs to do whatever they need to do, but they all got to do something and support each other, because we got to protect the children, because I don't want to live in a world where you can rape kids at will. I'm sorry. That's just not, that's hell. That's hell. Right?
Yeah.
Well,
I feel like they're
I'm
too for us.
surprised.
Go ahead.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised that they haven't legalized pedophilia yet. So
I think they're working on it.
yeah,
And that,
and
It's
then
because-
I think where they graduate from there is, once they get the pedophile law in place, then the next level of that would be child sacrificing will become legal after that. That's how sick. That's how sick these people are.
Women and children, circumcising girls and little boys, to be child sacrifice right there.
well, look at what they wanted to do in California, where you could kill the baby like after it's born.
Yeah.
What? Like, I don't have any words for that. Like,
I know.
right?
What they're doing, because I've noticed this. I've noticed a lot of my friends have had kids in the hospital with cancer and like other rare genetic diseases, right? Which I think the vaccines are causing that kind of stuff. And they're using these aborted fetuses for vaccines. They're mixing DNA together. They're creating all this stuff in our bodies where it's like, what? This is not natural, it's foreign. But I do believe that we have an issue with organ harvesting, whether it's you have put a donor on your license ID or the babies that they're aborting. They're using it for scientific research. So now you're turning humans into some big science experiment, and it's very inhumane because these people can feel pain. I mean, babies feel pain just like any other person. Babies feel pain the same way anybody else does.
Absolutely.
So it is. It's
But this is made. What they want to now do that for minors here in Canada, right? That's the child sacrifice right there.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, the simple fact that we have over 70,000 people have used the MAID program already,
and we don't have a
Canada?
donor.
What's that?
Medically assisted and
medically
dying.
assisted dying. 70,000 people have used that to take their own lives.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And we no longer have an organ donor problem.
No.
They have plenty of organs now, right? Because they can just sell your organs. And even when I was in the hospital, how much they charge for breast milk, for donated breast milk to these moms in the NICU, it's insane. My bill after the NICU was $17,000 for a month of being there. And thankfully, I had double insurance at the time for my daughter. But I mean, people who don't have that, how much they've had to pay for all of that stuff? It's like you're in a tight spot with your baby where you're working all this with my kid, and I'm forced to pay you all this money. It's insane what they're doing in these hospitals and what they're doing, how they're charging for organs, millions of dollars. $1 million for a heart, isn't that what it is?
Can you imagine when they play this interview 100 years from now and they'll go, there's no way, there is no way that this was going on. No way.
I mean,
right?
It better not be going on, otherwise there won't be 100 years later, right?
No.
It has to stop, because when you sit down and look at this, the only conclusion is that they want to murder us all, and the ones that they want to keep alive, they want to keep as slaves. The
Jews. We're the Jews. Tattoos, the social security cards we have with our numbers. I tell people it's no different than the tattoos that they put on them, the Jews. It's the same thing. No, it's not, Stephanie. How can you say that? Yes, look around what they're doing to people. The same exact thing. How is it not? Tell me.
It's just the modern version of that, right?
But
they've gotten smarter. They've gotten smarter with manipulation. That's all it is.
All those people would say, I would have never did that in Nazi Germany. I'm like, really? Really?
Yeah, you would have. I've seen it. Now, listen, I've said it to people during COVID.
Well, I know why people just walked right into that frigging gas chamber, because that's what people are doing right now. So,
they're gaslighting themselves now. The government's gaslit us so much that they're doing it to their own selves. They're like, I'm not seeing what I'm seeing, and you're crazy. And it's like,
Yeah.
this is where it's like, Lord help us all.
You're crazy.
Yeah.
Not me, you're crazy. I'm not the crazy one. It's all of you people who are going along with this shit. Can you please knock it off, you know?
So, yeah, as we're getting up here in time here, I just wanted you to kind of, what do you want to say to people about this issue that's like so pressing to us, that it's the biggest epidemic that we have on the planet is the child abuse and the child trafficking.
Yeah. Well, what I try to tell people is believe it. You know, when somebody's telling you a story, that story is probably 99.9% true. You know, I've been traveling for 20 years in the subject, heard millions of stories, and, you know, you can't make this stuff up. Like, you really can't. And, yeah, I don't know how we combat it other than, you know, educate as much as we can. You know, there's so many abusers out there now. I'm not talking about pedophiles. I'm talking about, you know, the whole, you know, a lot of the teaching profession is all about abuse. You know, the government is all about abuse. It's, you know, it is definitely, like you said, Dale, you know, the biggest epidemic on the planet is unresolved trauma, right? And however you get there and whatever category you fall in, abuse is abuse is abuse, and that abuse leaves you in emotional pain and suffering. What is emotional pain and suffering? Mental illness. So now you have this silent pain that nobody can see, and you're taught to suck it up and not be vulnerable or not share that, you know, you're unwell or whatever it is. And so now you have to find a coping mechanism to suppress that emotional pain and suffering. And so the majority of us will gravitate towards the dark side of life and get involved in addictive behavior as a coping mechanism to suppress, you know, the emotional pain and scars that are left behind from trauma. And yeah, and then we eventually get to the place where we have to make the ultimate choice: where am I going to live or am I going to die? And I would say that 99% of the population wants to live. They just don't want to live in emotional pain anymore because they're completely exhausted. And so, you know, there's only one entity that's left that you can reach out to and ask for help. And, you know, I did that, you know, 19 years ago, and I hit my knees in a washroom and I surrendered and I turned my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand Him. And the next day I woke up and I haven't had a drink or a drug since. And what I've tried to do is really, you know, build on that conscious contact with something greater than myself. And so until, I guess, collectively as, you know, as human beings, we decide that we're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and then we collectively come together and, you know, reach out to this very powerful entity, you know, we're going to stay in the same place.
Yeah, that I agree. And what I'll say here, before we close here is that, like, that idea of sucking it up, people need to understand that that's not the way it is. Men are designed to process things in real time, but you have to learn how to process it during the time that you're going through the trauma. If you don't have the tools to process, you won't be able to move forward, because once we're able to get through it, we actually become stronger. Because if you depend on God, He will there's no fire that will kill you. You will become stronger, and at the end of the day, you're going to look forward to the challenges, because then what these criminals do to you, they no longer phase you. You're just like, I'm going to get through it and I'm going to keep going until we're done. And when we start getting people those skills and those tools, this is where we're going to turn the enemy on their heels, and this is where we need to go. And we need the men and the women to work together to do this, because if we do what we're doing now, we're going to fail, but we need to go back to what worked. Keep it simple, stupid, right?
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
Stephanie, you have anything to say before we close this off?
I just want to say thank you so much, Theo, for coming on, especially with your status, just sharing your story and speaking up, because me and my partner talk about this all the time. He says the sports players need to stand up. We need to start saying this needs to stop playing sports, stop doing this. Let's take care of what actually matters, which is our children. So I think it'd be cool if we could collaborate maybe at some point, my partner and I, maybe get something going where we can start bringing awareness to this, because we are very much on this train wagon where we need to save the children. I mean, our children are in trouble. Society's in trouble, humanity's in trouble if we don't all come together. So again, I appreciate you and your insight and everything that you're doing on your end to help heal people and by sharing your story and all of that. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate it for sure. Yeah.
All right.
I'm not going anywhere. So I plan on
Let's get it done, baby.
I plan on being here for another 150 years. So
all right.
Heck yeah.
All right. I'll close here off with a prayer, and we'll see you guys again, and thank you guys all for coming. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your love, grace, and mercy, and the work that Theo is doing to help the children, and watch over all the men and the women that are standing up to help fix this problem and help heal our land. And Father, I ask of you this day to be with the men and the women, that they would come together to rebuild their families, their churches, their community, and their nation, and that we would have some protection from the children, and that we could shut down this evil wickedness that is destroying us all, is my prayer. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right. Thank you guys all for coming.
Take care.